Hello, and welcome to Philosophical Laugh Lines. This is Abbott. I'm your host, and typically the only voice on this podcast until I'm lucky enough to get guests. But I've been told I have a nice voice, so this shouldn't be too unpleasant. I am 28 years old. I grew up in Texas and always felt from when I can remember that I wanted to travel and see the world and experience as much as I could. And so now, since I've graduated university, that's kind of what I've been trying to do. And I studied film at the University of Texas, and I'm never gonna use it. And that also by no means that this is going to be professionally done or like professionally sounding, because obviously this is my first episode, but also I travel and I will be making these recordings in like the airport or while walking down a village road in Africa or walking along the beach somewhere, like, and it's like live. I just yawned. It's just gonna be like you're with me on all of it. It's not gonna sound like I'm ever really in a room with a microphone. But studying media showed me, I guess, how passionate I am about storytelling and how story is really everything for me, and just like people's lives and understanding how we work and what's important to all of us. And so that's my favorite thing to do, is to talk about stuff like what happens when we die and what are we here to do in this life or in these lives, as I think. Or as seems likely to me from the research I've done. But I just love talking about that stuff, and so that's kind of what I guess I'm planning on doing here. This podcast, what's happening in my present life is making me think about these ideas and how it relates to life in general and what people experience kind of in general. And I really enjoy finding patterns in things, seeing the metaphor in stuff that you don't often look for a metaphor in, or I don't know, I just love finding metaphors, and like seeing how different parts of nature can show us different ways to live life more peacefully or with more determination or with more honesty and authenticity and with more ease. And I love emotions. I'm an extremely emotional person. Anyone that knows me would know that, or could tell you that, I guess. And sometimes I feel things without a reason why. And so sometimes I can feel a little, I worry a lot that I'm crazy or too much, or that I sound insane. And I used to worry that more, and I feel like I've been trying to not worry about that as much, because everybody has their own idea of normal, and there's just a million definitions for it, and you just gotta find what works for you, honestly. And I feel like I'm at a big crossroads in my life right now. Like, I know I need to make a big change. I want to do something that more aligns with what gives me life, talking about this sort of stuff, understanding life better and finding cool reflections through it all is just like a really fun way for me to think about things. And so I want to make more of an effort to do that, I guess, in a concrete way. And so I guess this is just sort of like documenting that process, because I also love documenting things, expressing the narrative, creating the narrative, and then finding the kind of common thread that everybody can understand in a narrative or in a stage of life, and kind of breaking it down and getting to the root of it and getting to the most honest expression of it, or what feels like we can. My favorite writer, who now, like, this has just become a quote that I feel like I sort of use as a prayer in a sense, but they said, the answer is always a question. There is no truth more true than wonder. And I think that's kind of like what it gets down to. Like, I love philosophy, of course. I feel like everything I've just been describing is kind of towing around philosophy. Yeah, I feel like that's you have to live the question before you can really know the answer. And I mean, I think the knowing takes a really long time, if not multiple lifetimes. So I feel like this podcast is just kind of like exploring those questions and seeing which answers resonate the most at that time, because more than likely the resonance will change, and each season calls for a different lesson, each challenge calls for a different solution. And I love, my friends tell me that I help them reflect on life when they haven't in a while, get better in touch with themselves, because being in touch with yourself is being in touch with the flow of things, being in touch with spirit. That is our closest connection. Because if you're not in touch with yourself, it's harder to be in touch with other people. And so I guess that'll also be a space for this. And if you ever have any general questions that you would like answered, or not answered, because obviously, as I said, we're not getting to an answer, we're exploring the questions. But I'll share my experience with whatever we're talking about and what it reminds me of and where it feels like it's going, I guess. And then also I'd love to talk about just things that I find interesting, like some of the books that I read, and there's a wide variety. Like right now I'm reading a teenage queer romance novel, but I also have this sort of memoir from a Christian guy that talks about God a lot, and he's talking about it in the Christian sense, and I talk about God a lot, but definitely not in the Christian sense. Or spirit, whatever, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But it's a beautiful message. The book is called Love Does, and it definitely does. And no, I'm just talking about my books. I have a Italian play about a conversation between a prostitute and a client that I'm translating, and a book about a family's mother dying, and a novel. That one's a novel. And then a poetry book called I Do Everything I'm Told, which I really enjoy the way she writes. I think her name is Megan. I don't remember her last name. But yeah, so just about ideas in life and how the travel aspect. I love seeing how life is different around the world, but also how it's often coming from the same place, and the different parts of life that I find particularly remarkable or profound in different places that I travel, and just how kind people can be everywhere. A lot of storytelling, probably. Well, if anyone's ever had a conversation with me, they know a 5-minute conversation will have a story in it. I come from a family of storytellers. And I'm going to have a structure because I'm also a poet. That was the first way, or that was the last way I was really expressing myself, and now I'm ready to get more into the nitty-gritty, into the details. I have a lot more to say, but it all started with poetry, and so I want to have, as long as this works, I want to have each episode start with a poem of mine that feels relevant at the time, or for what I'm saying, and I'll get into why I wrote it, what I was thinking of at the moment, what I was experiencing, where I was, and everything like that. And I really hope you join me on this journey. This is exciting. It feels good to try something new. It also feels, I'm very nervous to not just like put something out there, but now like have the responsibility in a sense to keep it up. But I'm excited about this and I feel really good about it. And so, yeah, I hope you come along and we're gonna have fun. Definitely.